Breaking news. Ukraine needs Russian cheaper 155mm shells. That is the headline that is just shaking up the defense world today. It's Saturday, January 31st, 2026. For years, the narrative has been that Russian resistance in mass is unstoppable. Something fundamentally shifted. A new political alliance back to the supply chain. Before we get into exactly what please subscribe to the Ukraine's artillery via Italy.
And we absolutely have to talk about the physics. We're going to break down the square cube law. I mean, why one Ukrainian shell is effectively doing the damage of two Russian ones. It's not just about how many you fire.
No.
It's about what happens when they land.
Exactly. So let's unpack this. To really appreciate where we are today, in 2026, we have to look back at the economic trap from about, 18 months ago. Set the scene for us.
Yeah.
Why was the West just bleeding money?
Well, you have to understand the crisis to get the solution. The Western defense industry, it operates on a market model, right?
Yeah.
So when demand for 155mm ammo just skyrocketed, the corporations did what you'd expect.
Prices went up.
They surged. I mean, we saw manufacturers in France, Norway, quoting prices as high as 8,000 euros for a single shell.
That number always gets me. 8,000 euros. That's a car. You're firing a used car out of a cannon every 30 seconds.
Precisely. And that just created a mathematical impossibility for winning. Now look at Russia. They shifted to a total war economy, and they do it early. They're making their 152mm shells for, about $1,000, maybe $1,300 each.
So the math is just brutal. If Europe is paying 8 times more for a shell than Russia is,
you go bankrupt. Long before they run out of ammo.
Right.
It doesn't matter how rich NATO is. You can't sustain that kind of war of attrition. Not when Russia's pumping out somewhere between 3 and 4.5 million rounds a year. For a long time, they were outproducing the US and the EU combined.
So that was the trap. We were buying Ferraris for a demolition derby. How did Ukraine survive that? They didn't have the budget for 8,000 euros a shot.
And this is where the industrial pivot comes in. By late 2024, Ukraine realized that relying on Western donations, which were tied to those insane prices and slow approvals, was basically a death sentence.
They had to take it in-house?
They had to localize. And the game changer was a deal signed back in October 2024. It was between Ukrainian Armor and the Czechoslovak Group, or CSG.
I remember that, but
Oh.
I don't think people really grasped the scale of it. This wasn't just another send us weapons deal.
No, this was a help us build the factory deal. It was a full technology transfer. They started producing 155mm shells right there domestically. And because they cut out the massive overheads of the Western giants,
The shareholders, the bureaucracy.
all of it. And they used local labor. The price just plummeted. Domestic Ukrainian shells are now costing around 2,500 euro. The long-range versions are maybe 5,000.
And that's the number right there. 2,500 versus 8,000 there. That means for every one shell a Western government buys from some legacy company, Ukraine can make 3.
That's the metric that turns the tide. It bridges the volume gap. You don't have to match Russia shell for shell if your economic efficiency is 3 times higher. You stay in the fight without bankrupting your allies.
It really feels like a startup disrupting a legacy industry. You know, you've got these huge, slow companies, and then someone else just comes along and gets it done faster and cheaper.
It's a perfect analogy, and like any smart startup, they built in redundancy. They didn't put all their production in one place.
They split it,
Exactly. Some of it happens in the Czech Republic, and some of it happens in Ukraine.
which is just crucial, right? I mean,
Yeah.
building a huge ammo factory in a war zone is like painting a giant target on your back.
Of course. If a Russian missile takes out a plant in Ukraine, the Czech line keeps running. It's all about resilience. It's about maintaining that flow, that rhythm.
And speaking of flow, let's talk about where the raw materials are coming from. This is the part of the deep dive that really surprised me. The
so-called Indian connection.
Oh, this is one of the most fascinating geopolitical twists of the entire conflict.
It really is. You look at a map and think, India. They're officially neutral, they're a BRICS nation, they buy billions in Russian oil, and yet, reports from Reuters, from the Business Standard, they show that Indian companies are actually fueling Ukraine's artillery.
It's a classic case of global supply chains just completely overriding political statements. The mechanism is basically a washing process for ammunition.
A washing process.
Yeah. It starts with companies in India like Sunita Tools or Yantra India. They produce the empty 155 millimeter shell casings, just the steel body.
And I'm guessing they're not charging $8,000 for it.
Not even close. We're talking between $230 and $400 a unit. It's dirt cheap.
Okay, so a few $100 for the steel casing. But how does that get from a factory in India to the Donbass?
Well, the shipping manifest doesn't say final destination, Ukraine. The casings get shipped to European intermediaries, specifically to an Italian contractor called MES, or to firms in the Czech Republic.
Okay.
So these European companies take the empty Indian casing, they fill it with high-grade explosives, screw on the fuses, and then they label it.
And suddenly it's an Italian shell or a Czech shell.
Exactly. It's documented as European equipment, and then it's shipped to Ukraine. It allows them to access the rock-bottom manufacturing costs of the Global South while still getting that high-quality NATO-standard explosive fill.
It's clever. It's incredibly clever. But do we really think the Kremlin doesn't know this is happening?
Oh, they absolutely know. Their intelligence services aren't stupid. But here's the geopolitical problem for them. What can they actually do about it? India is one of the only major economies still buying their oil in massive quantities.
So if Putin sanctions India, he's cutting off his own economic lifeline.
He'd be shooting himself in the foot. He has to just swallow it. He takes Indian money for oil, and then private Indian companies use those profits to build shells that are used against his own soldiers.
The irony is just, it's incredible. But let's pivot from the economics to the battlefield. We talk about 155 millimeters versus 152 millimeters. To most people, that's 3 millimeters. It sounds like nothing. Why is it so much better?
It sounds like a rounding error, doesn't it? But in ballistics, and especially when you talk about the square cube law, that tiny difference changes everything.
Okay, break that down for us. So why does 3 millimeters matter so much?
Okay, think of it this way. The Russian 152 millimeters is an old Soviet design. The steel technology is outdated. So to handle the pressure of firing, the walls of the shell have to be really thick.
Right, so there's less room inside for the explosives.
Exactly. Now, the Western 155 millimeters uses much stronger steel alloys, so the walls can be much, much thinner. So even though the outside diameter is only slightly bigger, the internal volume where you pack the explosives is significantly larger.
So more boom.
A lot more boom. A standard British L-15, 155 millimeter, carries about 11.3 kilograms of explosives. A Russian of F-25, 152 millimeter, carries only about 6.8 kilograms.
Wow. That's almost double the payload.
It's a massive difference. That's why we say one Ukrainian 155 millimeter has the destructive power of nearly 2 Russian shells. It helps bridge that firepower gap. Even if Russia fires more, their shells are half as effective.
And on that note, we're hearing that Russian quality is actually going down. Something about a mobilization mixture.
Yes, that's the other side of this. While Ukraine is upgrading, Russia is running into shortages. They're running out of high-grade hexyl explosive, so they've switched to something called TA-20 for their newer shells.
A mobilization mixture. That does not sound like a premium product.
It's a serious downgrade. It's about 80% TNT and 20% aluminum powder. It's less stable, less powerful, and it causes more wear and tear on their artillery barrels.
And of course, you have to add the drone factor to all of this.
You have to.
Yeah.
A bigger explosion is useless if you miss. The drone integration has completely changed the math. Before, you might fire 60 shells to destroy one target. Now, with a drone overhead correcting the fire,
You down to what? 8 or 10 shells?
something like that. So Ukraine is paying less for shells that are twice as powerful, and they need to fire fewer of them to get a kill. It's an efficiency loop Russia just can't compete with.
So where does all this leave us right now, at the end of January 2026? What's the outlook?
The phrase everyone is using is cruising speed. If 2024 and 2025 were about that emergency scramble for ammo, the Czech initiative.
A shell bridge, right?
Right, that was the lifeline. It delivered about 1.8 million shells and kept Ukraine in the fight. But 2026 is about stabilized, high-volume production. We're seeing new mechanisms come online, like PURL.
PURL. That's the NATO priority list.
The prioritized Ukraine requirements list. Essentially, European allies pay, and the U.S. manufacturing base, which is also ramping up, produces and delivers. It lets Ukraine jump the queue.
So Europe pays, America builds, Ukraine fires.
In a nutshell, yes. And the numbers are finally starting to look good. European production is aiming for 2 to 2.5 million rounds this year. The US is aiming for 1.2 million. Combine that with Ukraine's own domestic output.
And the West is finally overtaking Russia's volume potential.
That's the goal. But Russia isn't just sitting there. Their countermove is all about range. Their procurement orders show they're desperate for long-range charges for their howitzers. They're trying to stay out of reach.
So it's a defensive move. They know they're losing the artillery duel up close.
It shows they can't stand toe-to-toe with the 155mm anymore.
So let's wrap this up. This deep dive really shows that modern war is just as much about economics and supply chains as it is about anything else.
Absolutely. Ukraine beat the cost curve. They refused to pay €8,000. They localized to get it down to 2,500. They leveraged Indian manufacturing, and they used superior physics to counter Russian mass.
It's a masterclass in adaptation, really.
It is. But if I can leave you with one final thought, it's about rhythm.
Rhythm, as in rate of fire.
The rhythm of delivery. We get obsessed with the big annual numbers, millions of shells, but war is fought day by day. The challenge now isn't just the total number, it's maintaining a steady, consistent flow through this incredibly complex new supply chain.
From India to Italy to the Donbas, that's a lot of moving parts.
A lot. Can that complex web maintain the steady beat needed to stop an offensive? Or will one political shift, one bottleneck, disrupt the entire flow? Russia's supply chain is crude, but it's direct. Ukraine's is smart and efficient, but it might be fragile. That rhythm, that's what's going to decide 2026.
That's a powerful thought to end on. We'll be watching that rhythm very, very closely. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Arya, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. And one last time, subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.